So less than an hour after Ilia Topuria KO'd Alexander Volkanovski, Dana White announced that the main event of UFC 300 was going to be Alex Pereira versus Jamahal Hill. They posted this on all their social medias, but they did this an hour after Ilia Topuria KO'd Alexander Volkanovski. Why would you do that? We're going to talk about that in today's video. We're going to talk about what I think about this matchup, who I think wins, what I think about this matchup being the main event of UFC 300, which we'll get to. The fact that there's one more fight to be announced for UFC 300 apparently, and I'm wondering what that fight's going to be. I think I know what it's going to be, and I know it's going to be on the prelims. And we're also just going to give our overall assessment of the card now that it's basically done, and go through some of the fights on the card and all of the fights on the card. But this fight was announced less than an hour after Ilia Topuria KO'd Alexander Volkanovski. Now, I'm not a promotional genius, but I would imagine if you were going to announce the main event for your biggest event ever, that this was supposed to be at UFC 300, then maybe, just maybe, you wouldn't want to clog up the headlines with a massive main event win for Ilia Topuria over Alexander Volkanovski. Maybe. Maybe you wouldn't want to do that. Why would you do that? Now, these posts did get good interactions, but why not save a day for its own and then make all of the headlines of that day with your massive announcement? Because the UFC knows this is not what they promised us, and that's what this comes down to. It's nothing. Alex Pereira and Jamahal Hill are not to blame. They're saving the card. We should praise them. One thing they should not have done, though, UFC this is, and Dana White, is spend ages hyping up UFC 300. There were podcasts. I don't have the time to go back through all the hours of interviews of Dana White and find the specific moments. But you all know the moments. If you've been paying attention to the MMA world and Dana White's interviews, you know what he's been saying. This main event's going to blow your socks off. You've never seen anything like this main event. I mean, this is McGregor level stuff that we're about to announce. And everyone thought, oh, it's going to be McGregor Chandler. Or maybe it'll be Makhachev Edwards, which apparently was in negotiations. But the amount that they hyped this up, never do it again. Just don't say anything about the main event. And then honestly, we would be appreciative of this card. You cannot go around talking about UFC 300 like it's going to be something the likes of which we've never seen before. And the main event is this is gonna shock the world. Wait till I announce this one. It's coming. I just gotta let it go through my fucking lower intestine. Oh, shat it out. Onto the news. Alex Pereira, Jamahal Hill. I like this matchup. I don't like the fact that Jamahal Hill, I may be wrong, but I think he said that he wasn't going to be ready for UFC 300. I think he said that he was still recovering, and now all of a sudden he's fighting. But even if that's the case and he's not in tip-top condition, he wasn't in tip-top condition to fight Glover Teixeira, stepped in on short notice and beat the brakes off him for 5 rounds. So it's not like that's something that's really affected Jamahal Hill before. But they've announced this everywhere, and to be fair, it's got good interaction. On the UFC Instagram post, everyone hates it, but it's got 552,000 likes. Everyone's saying 298 is better than 300. Worst main event in history. Yeah, they fumbled this card. This is dog shit button with 30,000 likes. They posted this thinking it would make us feel better. Everyone is trashing this card. Everyone is. But honestly, I think it's a good card. It's just not what we were promised. That's the problem. We were promised a main event that would blow our socks off. Honestly, we were promised that. And now we're not getting that. Let's go through the card now, though, as it stands. Because we've got one fight left on this card to talk about. And I think I know what that fight's going to be. And then what we'll do is we'll circle back round to what I think about who's going to win the main event of Alex Pereira, Jamahal Hill. So we've got Alex Pereira versus Jamahal Hill in the main event. I'm assuming very strongly that Gaethje Holloway is going to be the co-main event. Now, it didn't say that on the schedule, of this, it said Zhang Weili and Zhao Nan's going to be the co-main above Gaethje versus Holloway for the BMF belt. Now, maybe they just want to, give the official title more respect than the BMF belt. I completely understand. From a promoter's perspective, though, unless you want to single-handedly go out of your way to praise the women fighters and make a point about that, from a pure promotions perspective, there's no logical reason other than pandering to a women's audience to make Gaethje Holloway below Zhang Weili and Zhao Nan on the card. You've got to have it as the co-main event. What gets the most promotion? What appears on all the posters? The main and co-main event. You've got to have Gaethje versus Holloway as the co-main over Zhang Weili versus Yan Zhao Nan. If they don't do that, they're merely pandering and saying that they're inclusive. I get it, though. Not too big of a deal. Not going to harp on it for too long. I just think it should be the feature fight. And Gaethje versus Holloway should be the co-main. Whatever, though. Pereira versus Jamahal Hill. Gaethje versus Holloway. Zhang Weili and Zhao Nan. Yuri Prohaska versus Alexander Rakic. Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling. And Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. Now, I'm going to just come out and say it. Look at what's on the screen right now and add Holloway versus Gaethje. That's the main card of the pay-per-view. That is an absolutely sick pay-per-view main card. That is incredible. Absolutely phenomenal. If the UFC didn't hype up the main event announcement so much just for it to be a title fight we saw coming anyway, then I would absolutely appreciate this card. Don't get our hopes up, you bald fuck, Dana White, and then storm out of a podcast because you were about to cry on the Howie Mandel podcast. Don't fucking start that shit with us, mate. Give it to us straight. You're struggling. We're trying to find a main event. We'll find a title fight to put in the main event. Trust me, we'll find one. Say something like that. Don't say this one. This is McGregor level stuff, this super fight we're about to announce. This isn't what you said it was going to be. But Alex Pereira, Jamahal Hill, Gaethje versus Holloway, Zhang versus Yan, Prohaska Rakic, Kattar Sterling, Oliveira Tsarukyan, 6-fight main card. That is amazing. That's an amazing main card. Simple as that. Anyone saying this is a mid card is delusional. I just am so glad that we got on the UFC about this card. Because imagine if there was no fan pressure. Maybe there wouldn't have been a certain fight here or there. Now, they were announcing wasted prelim fights, which we'll now get to in a second. Let's look at the prelims here. Who's at the top of the screen? Bo Nickel? He is. Right, this is all of the prelims. Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage. I don't mind it. Davison Figueiredo, Cody Garbrandt. Amazing fight on the prelims. Bobby Green, Jim Miller. Amazing fight on the prelims. Wasted Holly Holm, Kayla Harrison, but still a big fight that's going to get some attention, I'm sure. Kayla Harrison will have an ESPN interview, and it'll get like 10k views. That's some views. That's more than, say, a Farid Basharat would get. So, that's good. Sadiq Yusuf, Diego Lopez. Sick fight. Amazing fight. Unbelievable fight on the prelims. Jessica Andrade, Marina Rodriguez. Now, are Andrade Rodriguez and Holm Harrison wasted spots on this card? They are. They bring nothing to the table. Everyone knows that they're just going to take a shit break, likely during Holm versus Harrison, and then probably watch Andrade Rodriguez because it should be quite fun. But this is a shit break. So hopefully one of them's the early prelim opener, although I've heard that Garbrandt versus Figueiredo will be the opener. So they're going to force you to watch. You can't come to the card half hour late and skip a fight like Andrea Lee versus Miranda Maverick. You've got to be there from the start and sit through it. They're punishing us. So the last fight they're going to add to the prelims, what's it going to be? As far as I'm concerned, they should put Figueiredo Garbrandt on the prelims. Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage on the prelims. Bobby Green, Jim Miller on the prelims. And then likely Holly Holm, Kayla Harrison as well. Now, I think they're likely going to do Sadiq Yusuf versus Diego Lopez as the headliner of the early prelims. And then Jessica Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez. But you need one more fight. So ideally, maybe Holm Harrison can be on the early prelims. And I think the last fight you should add to this card, that I think would take it to a next level, and take the prelims especially to a whole other level, if you add this to the prelims, I mean, the prelims as it stands already are better than any fight night event we've got so far this year. So it's sad that that's the direction the company's going in, but it is what it is. I think they should add Josh Emmett versus Edson Barboza. I think that's a sick fight. Now, they may want to save Edson for UFC 301. Whatever, add Josh Emmett versus Edson Barboza to UFC 301. Nate Landwehr. Someone who is going to hype up the event and single-handedly has saved fight night cards before. His fight with Onama saved the fight night card they were on, and he made it a war, and it was all anyone was talking about. Nate Landwehr versus Nathaniel Wood. Nate Landwehr versus a featherweight coming off a loss. I can't think right now, but there's one of them coming off a loss somewhere. Maybe Alex Caceres. Something along these lines. It doesn't have to be Josh Emmett, Edson Barboza. It could be Josh Emmett, Giga Chikadze. It could be any of these matchups that are good, that you wouldn't really consider as a huge matchup, but are just a good, consistent, solid fight to put on the prelims. That's where my mind would go with what to put on this card. But we'll see what happens, I guess. We will see what happens. But it's looking like a good card based on the main card. But they basically tried to sneak this out, and I don't like that. That's weaselly behavior from the UFC. We're at a point now where the UFC is hiding from their fan base. There is a fan base that the UFC just don't like. And it's our fan base, the YouTube MMA fan base, and just the hardcore fan base in general. The ones that actually care about the sport and their life revolves around it. The UFC hates that fan base, and they fear them, which is why they tried to sneak out this main event. Oh, Ilya just KO'd Volk. Fucking announce it. Now. And they started fucking all systems go and put the post up, everyone. Ilya's going to get all the attention. And Ilya did get a lot of attention. But it's just pathetic the way they went around it, man. I've never seen this company pull such a weasel move to announce a fight. Like, just slip it out there. Whoops. Did that go up? I guess that's the main event now, guys. Moving on. Any other questions about Ilya? You know what I mean? It was just, this is a pathetic move from the UFC. But what do I think about the matchup? Hear me out. I think Alex Pereira should win. I trust in his improvement. I like his the way he's going to adapt to light heavyweight again. Middleweight was never his division, in my opinion. That's why I picked him when he was moving up to light heavyweight in his fights to do well and win and become champion against Blachowicz and Yuri. I've always thought light heavyweight was Pereira's division. I think he's going to do better every time he's in that division. And he's used to the size he's carrying around. He's getting better in shape. 4'205". That initial jump up just a few months after his loss to Adesanya, he can't have bulked up properly for a light heavyweight. He just looked like Pereira with a bit of love handles on him. Now he's going to be in proper light heavyweight shape. He's going to have been improving. I am worried that we've seen him partying and drinking a little bit as a guy who didn't used to do any of that. And after his girl split up with him, you know, there's all this drama now in Alex Pereira's life. I don't like that. What I will say is this. Quit acting like Alex Pereira ain't right there to be hit by boxing combinations. And quit acting like we ain't seeing... who's the guy? Papi Gio, I think his name is, on Instagram. This guy tagging Pereira with right hands. Now, I know Pereira's playing with him and just trying to have a fun sparring session. But every time I see a Pereira sparring session, I'm seeing people crack him with a straight 2 down the pipe. Or a 1-2 on an offbeat timing. It's the same shot every time. So honestly, I'm not decided on picking Pereira yet. I'm going to have to rewatch a bunch of Jamahal Hill's fights. Maybe I can talk to Jamahal Hill in the build-up, or, you know, after this announcement's gone live. I literally said to Jamahal Hill in the message, I said, let's wait for the UFC 300 news to blow over, and then I'll have you on, and we can steal the headlines of you being on. And he said, cool. He was the UFC 300 news. I hope he didn't know about that when he said, all right, cool, let's wait for it to blow over. Either way, Jamahal Hill's got a solid shot. There's a way to win. There's a method to win. And that has been where underdogs have cashed. The head kick against Usman. We saw it coming. That was the problem in Usman's game. Edwards found it. Edwards utilized low kicks as well in the rematch. And that has been a problem with Usman as well. Who can find the shot that's the problem for the guy who's unbeatable? That's what we find out, especially when it comes to striking matchups, right? Pereira, Adesanya. Cannonier keeps landing left hooks. Whitaker keeps landing left hooks. Pereira will. Boom. Pereira does it in the first fight. Finishes it Israel Adesanya. Ilia Topuria. I know I switched a decision last minute, but I said that knockdown's going to be there all night long. Right hand over the lead hand of Volk as he's backing up against the cage. Boom. Ilia Topuria lands it, puts him out. Jamahal Hill knows the shot. So it's the 2. It's the straight 2 down the pipe. Pereira always tried to roll with it and then shovel into his rear hand and then his lead hand afterwards. He does it all the time. He turns away. He tries to roll with a straight and then he loads up his rear and then throws his lead hand afterwards. So there's a way for Jamahal Hill to win. Is he going to be able to do it? Is his time going to run out? Is his chances of landing that shot going to go down as Pereira chews up a leg that we don't know is 100% upon Jamahal Hill's return? I didn't think UFC 300 was in the time frame of Jamahal Hill's return. That's not what we were hearing from interviews. And now all of a sudden, when they have no other option for the main event, all of a sudden he is taking it. I don't know about that, especially because it's an Achilles tendon. The injury is in a position that can be affected by low kicks. And Jamahal Hill has been hit by low kicks before. I know it was a while ago, but OSP was really chopping at his leg because Jamahal Hill walks quite a bit and he's very heavy on his lead leg for his boxing style. So, I'm leaning Alex Pereira originally as soon as I see this matchup announced. But, I don't know, we'll see. I'll watch back a few fights and there is a chance I could switch my pick because I'm sick of people acting like Pereira ain't getting tagged. Like, his boxing defense is like everyone's got 16-ounce gloves on. And everyone doesn't have 16-ounce gloves on. You know what I mean? Like, he's learned a boxing defense that's very risky for 4-ounce gloves. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.